All right, so this one's a little late, but this is back war number 7 against SAS, one of our peer alliances, someone who always gives us a tough matchup, somebody that we sort of match up pretty well against overall. And it was a pretty cool war because it lined up to be a horseman cable war, which is something that I have never experienced before, where he was taking multiple fights. You know what he is. He's a damage machine. He does it without really making too much contact with the opponents, as long as you can parry heavy. And there are just some times where he's just the best option to just erase some difficult nodes on the map, and that's what we're going to see here. Additionally, this is back in time when I actually had units on my account, because currently I have about 30 units because I finally got over 10k. I fought Superior King a few times. I got that deal, and I'm on the way to being Paragon. So more on that soon, but I didn't want to let the war videos get too far behind. So yeah, path 1, this is the new node, reinvigorated-fury. Cable has no way to deal with the healing except for the despair mastery. Essentially, it's like the personal space node with furies, only instead of furies, he's going to stack regens. Additionally, he's got his rock field business, and we're just going to parry heavy him to death, and you're going to see that it works absolutely fine. Now, Cable was sort of the favorite for Terrax bosses back in the Protect season, because the way he does his damage is all damaging debuffs. And, additionally, compared to someone like Archangel, you have the bleed immunity and the shock immunity of Terrax as well. So right there, I dashed back a little bit just to let the dot do its thing a little bit. There's no reason to keep hitting him when I know that just one more heavy was going to kill him, and that is enough. So really, you're going to see a lot of parry heavy, but just notice that sometimes there is a strategy in not hitting them and just parrying and backing off so that you don't give them too much power and they're still going to die plenty fast. But as I was saying, he was used for a lot of Terrax bosses, so I think in the back of all of our heads of high-tier Alliance War players, when we see a Terrax and when we can't think of someone better, we will sometimes just go with Cable. And I think that's how this whole thing started, was we saw path 1, we saw that Terrax, we were like, oh, let's just use Cable. Then we have a ramped Apocalypse to go up against Moleman, who, this is a node that Apocalypse basically hard counters here, right? This is masochism, which he hard counters, and then the purifiability of Moleman itself is just completely not an issue. So all we're going to do is use our special ones. Right there, some weird input thing, but whatever. We had the invulnerable on for a reason. The reason I didn't do power start 1 is the same reason as in that Venom fight I took a couple wars ago. The unstoppable armor thing is just going to make special 2s a little risky. You really will have to throw your special 2 very early in the timer. Whereas the special 1 lasts a little bit shorter, so you can be a little bit more liberal with when you throw it. So we're going to see that it is absolutely plenty of damage just throwing special 1s. We're not trying to nuke them down. We're not trying to do anything fancy. We do a little heavy cancel. As I said, we don't do anything fancy. We did that, which is like, mildly fancy. Come on, guys. That's not super, super fancy. It's a heavy cancel. It's Apocalypse. And he's almost down. We're just watching for that timer. There are no armors that Moleman can get himself, so it's really just the unstoppable armor timer. And we turned off masochism and his own shrug. And now Apocalypse has done his duty because he is just going to be a pre-fight man today. My rank 4, just going to be the pre-fight guy, because we looked at the rest of the war and it looked like Cable could just take the rest of the fights that I had to take. And with that, we're going to place the horseman, and I'm going to take a little break, and we're going to turn on recoil, we're going to turn on double edge and liquid courage, make sure that we have the guidance boosts, which is going to help us connect our heavies during the parry. That way it won't trigger Mixmaster, that way it won't trigger auto block, because that's sort of the way she works. It needs to be a stun debuff for her to auto block you, so if you have a passive stun, you're good. We're just checking that all these pre-fights are in. And I gotta say, I guess I was a little nervous here, even though it was just parry heavy. This is something that Vega has said before, is that sometimes when you have parry heavy champions, it's actually a little more nerve-wracking than normal because of the way the inputs have been working lately. And I'm pretty sure I do not have the beta input refractor thing on for this fight. I just wanted to trust the old system because there was a war where I did miss a parry that was like very, very costly. And of course, she does a power focus 1, so we do know that she's going to be throwing some of those. If we stack up too many of the Spider Sense charges, we can get power burned. But she's just absolutely melting away. We are just losing a little bit of health based on some of this block damage, but we're just kind of turtling up and reparrying because I'm like, I think I can get through this without her throwing another special. And she just really played into that reparry. And, you know, aside from taking a little bit of damage there, they must have been running 3 out of 3 to spare because that combined with the poison on me, I definitely lost a little bit of healing, lost a little bit of health. So we are going to have to potion up, but overall, you can see what would have been a pretty dangerous Mix Master Power Focus 1 fight. We used the guidance boost, we used the horseman, and we used the recoil tree masteries, and it was just over in a matter of a few heavies. So yeah, that's going to be the theme of this war. There's not really much else to say. This node is MODOK here, so you know you may want to use your Killmonger, you may want to use your Moleman. They can probably nuke him down, but there's also this regen node, which means if you're backing up a little bit too much, which can certainly happen against an extra large champion, somebody who has some annoying specials that usually might take 2 dashbacks, you may be proccing these regens, you may be elongating the fight. And this is, again, where the cable parry heavy thing is just going to come into play, because when you heavy, you don't have to worry about auto block. Even if we did make a mistake or something, we have the horseman ability to go unstoppable. We have the bleed is not doing any damage because we have the resistance to bleed here. So again, this is just going to be parry heavy central. Figure we may have to just bait one special one along the way, but you're seeing that our heavy is so late that it's canceling out his little auto block charge. Here we're just going to hold block, turtle up. Everyone's really playing into the reparry today. I mean, that's obviously a way that some of these fights could be a little bit more dangerous, is if they start throwing medium heavy at you back to back and you get backed up in the corner. But fortunately, that didn't happen. Now, Bishop, he's really the main reason that I am running these masteries, because I think of all the fights, this one has buffet, which means, you know, there is a chance that Cable, especially with his increased ability accuracy, I could be proccing power gains and regens and then, you know, dexterity mastery and things like that. And those will be giving him a really solid amount of regen. If he gets enough of those regen buffs, which would be pretty hard, but I guess technically possible, then he would go unblockable. So there is a little bit of danger in this fight if you don't get it over quickly. Which is why, again, this horseman cable nonsense is just, look at that. He's already under halfway. Now we can just hold block. He'll probably die if I don't do anything. We're topped off at 100%. He plays into 1 reparry, and that is enough. So he had 10 prowess. If he was high enough sig, he would be going unblockable soon. But we didn't proc any regens. We didn't proc any buffet. We kind of lucked out there. RNG wise, and yeah, that's the end of that fight. So some interesting defenders that may have, you know, caused us to use some more hard counters for them. We just used Cable, and that made the planning just a little bit easier. And then finally, we have this rank 4 Omega Sentinel on node 46. I believe I've taken her here before, maybe the first war when she first came out. I think Noon placed her here. And this is just going to be another example of Nebula just shutting down a node that has a robot on it. We've seen this before with Nimrod. Really, the only difference here is that the base attack of Omega Sentinel is super high. I've talked about that before. You know, we are losing in the Challenger rating, or the challenge rating, I think it's called, because we are a rank 3, she's a rank 4, so you can see that her attack and her block penetration and all that is just really, really hurting in that block. But we're still very much ahead here, especially because we're running the damage masteries. Our basic hits even are doing tons of of damage. And now, you know, I could basically transfer these shocks over any time. We got some nice perfect blocks there. That was quite lucky. But yeah, I'm just looking for a good opportunity to do exactly that. And looking at her health going down, way overkill. So yeah, she doesn't have a lot of health. She has a lot of armor to make up for the health. And that's one of the reasons that she's pretty tanky. But when she's not gaining armors because you're shutting down her abilities, you're in good shape. So this war was certainly an interesting showcase. Because, you know, Cable, I think, has sort of fallen out of graces with some people. There are just better options. People aren't thinking about him. But, I mean, look at all those nodes that he just erased from the map. You know, Peni Parker, MODOK, Bishop, Terrax. Those are all annoying defenders that you usually have to send a specific counter to. You know, like, oh, we should send Claire for this Terrax, and we should send Magneto for this Penny, and Killmonger for that MODOK, and then, you know, War Machine or something, or Archangel for the Bishop. But it's like, nope, Cable, turn him into a horseman, and then that frees up other spots for the other players. So it is important when you're like strategizing the war to realize that if you can see vulnerabilities like that to one big champ, then it's going to make the defense easier to plan against. And that's exactly what happened here. So we did lose this war. It was a little bit of karma because we did win a war earlier in the season because of diversity. Somebody didn't place on the opponents. And then we were that guy. We had someone not place, unfortunately. Just real life gets in the way. And you know, me personally, and I think everyone in the Alliance are very sympathetic because it's just something that can happen to any of us, and we wouldn't want to, you know, have others make us feel bad if we do it. It still is a drag, but I guess we got a gift early in the season, and then we gave the gift back to someone else in this war. So yeah, we have a little bit of work to do, but the last couple of wars, which you will see soon, have been going pretty well. So we're in decent shape, and the Alliance in general is performing very well. We just have some pretty stiff competition, and you know, the rewards were buffed in Alliance wars. So I think in general, people are just pushing a little bit harder at the top. But anyway, hope you enjoyed seeing all that Horseman Cable stuff, and I will try to get that next video out soon, as soon as I make Paragon, as soon as I pick those next rank 4s, I'm going to be making a big video about that whole thing, about the rank ups, who I chose, and all that stuff. So look forward to that for sure, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Catch you in the next one.